Welcome to Ed's Not Dead. I'm Robbie Dodd. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. C.H. Siddons.
Hey, welcome back. New school year.
Welcome back, Mr. Siddons. And of course, Mr. Peter Crable.
Welcome to season 6.
Season 6, episode 1. It has been a while, folks. We are very glad to be back. We had to move heaven and earth to find a time to record, but here we are, and it's going to be a great show. You can find us on Twitter at Ed's Not Dead PC, and you can check out the Ed's Not Dead website, edsnotdead.com. As always, we're brought to you by Ed's Not Dead Media, full-service educational media company focusing on leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. Fellas, yes. I am so happy to see you guys. It was a long summer.
It's nice. Yeah, and the air has turned a little bit. The mornings are a little crisp.
Yep.
Enjoyable. Yep. Maybe I'll wear a jacket. Maybe I won't. Fall is upon us.
And there's no consequence if you don't wear that jacket.
Yeah, do whatever you want. It literally doesn't matter.
Right.
Do you still have, since you're both millennials and squeakers when it comes to money, are you still running your air conditions, or are you just totally windows open?
No, air conditioner's on.
Yeah, that is one thing I never understood. Like when making yourself miserable, it's like, well, you have the air conditioning, might as well use it.
Right.
It is kind of that weird in between time in the house, though. When you have the AC on and it's cooler outside, you might want to wear a long sleeve shirt in the house, and you switch to sweats, not shorts, right?
Right.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. One thing we did, probably since the last episode, we got solar.
Whoa,
man! Really?
Yes, we did.
That was the summer project. You didn't even tell us you were doing that.
Jeez.
I mean, I literally did nothing. I just showed up, and then there were solar panels on my house. But yeah, no, it was done.
Are you renting or owning?
Owning, baby.
Whoa!
Do a whole big thing about the SREC market in DC and how great it is.
Wow!
How many panels?
That is a great question, Robbie. Somewhere around 11, I want to say.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you giving back to the grid?
Yes.
So you're giving some back to the grid. Do you store that? Is it converted right into electricity, or is it somehow I don't really profess to understand how solar works.
Yeah, you use the grid when you use the grid, and when you don't use the grid and you're on solar, you put it back in the grid. So you get like a net meter at the end. So for the month of July, do you want to know what my electric bill was?
I'm going to be upset.
$4.
What?
Siddons, we got to do something.
That's crazy.
And how many electric cars do you have?
0.
Okay.
But at some point we will own one.
I thought you had the Prius.
Yeah, that's not electric. That's a hybrid. I mean, it's not a plug. It's not a plug. It's not a plug.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have massive gas guzzlers. A Prius is not.
No, for sure.
My 4 gas guzzling.
I was like, which one are we talking about here?
Yeah, the blue one or the green one?
Yeah,
red one.
The red one. Wait, you have a red one?
Yeah, Jenny's
Casey, is that the crickets at your house that I can hear? Are you?
Oh, that would be. Sorry.
Are you hanging out with nature?
I'll shift back inside.
I was like, is that me?
Speaking of fall, that's growing up in the country. That's the peepers were in the spring and the crickets are in the fall.
There you go.
Marks the change.
That's true.
Do you know what this could be on the quiz, Mr. Crable? Do you know what a peeper is?
It's a mix between a grasshopper and a butterfly. Is that not accurate?
Mr. Siddons might be getting tense.
Quickly off the rails.
Mr. Siddons, peeper?
A flower that a perennial flower that comes out way after. I have
bug,
no idea.
Man, clearly.
6th grade outdoor ed king. You don't. Okay.
I was never. That wasn't in the curriculum, Dr. Dodd.
Anybody
really teaching those kids?
A peeper would be a frog.
Oh no!
Is that an informal term for a frog?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
no, actually, I don't. Would you Googs it right now? I think you see what a peeper is. Anyway, we have a great show tonight, Mr. Crable.
We do.
We're really excited to have Scott Joftus, who is currently a Montgomery County Board of Education member. He is an education consultant and professor of ed leadership on the show tonight. So we've got lots of questions for Dr. Joftus, and we are also going to delve into the teacher shortage. We've all lived it, right? but we're not completely convinced it's true.
Yeah, or so-called teacher shortage.
Yeah,
we're just asking questions. We're just asking questions.
Yeah, that's all we're doing, pontificating on it.
All right.
So I found out spring peepers.
Spring peepers.
The spring peeper is a small chorus frog, widespread throughout the eastern United States and Canada. They're so called because of their chirping call that marks the beginning of spring.
Yep. And they can be really early. For example, late February, early March.
Oh wow!
And it doesn't take long if you drive outside the Beltway where the rest of the nation lives. You'll hear peepers pretty quick on spring nights. It's a nice sound.
They're very small. They're very cute.
Yeah, they're cute. All right, real quick before we get into wanted teachers, no training necessary. How was the summer, Mr. Krabs?
I had an A+ summer. It was an awesome summer. It was maybe the best so far. Got a couple of vacations in. I think talked about last time we met. I think we had not gone to Western New York yet. Western New York is awesome.
Right.
It was lots of swimming, lots of waterfalls, lots of jumping into swimming holes.
Was that the Hudson you were on?
No, way further west.
Okay, got it.
We were the first place we stayed. It's the Finger Lakes region.
Finger Lakes.
About an hour and a half outside Buffalo. In my whole life, I've never had any desire to go to Niagara Falls.
Yep.
But we were like, well, we're like an hour and a half away. So we did do the most American tourist thing imaginable.
Well, you should because it's amazing.
It's Niagara Falls. It's pretty big. Yeah, it's legit.
Did you go down Niagara Falls in a barrel?
Did not, no, but we did do the Maid of the Mist.
Oh, you did that. Yeah,
yes, they just print money. I mean, those people must be literally gazillionaires.
So
they throw boats out every 15 minutes.
When I go on my salmon fishing trip in November, because we always have to schedule the show around it. It's about an hour and a half from Buffalo on Lake Ontario.
Got it.
Anyway, so you had a blast, and I want you to share with the audience since you're a relatively new principal, you had a big learning at the end of the last school year, which you credited to me. So I want some credit about vacations.
Oh yes, the right away.
The right away after school vacation, Mr. Siddons. We got to get you on that train.
Do it.
I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is.
Right when school ends, get out of Dodge. Be done with it. And I do think that really kickstarted summer feeling extremely long, because there's not like a week or two where you're like kind of working and trying to like decompress. It's just like, no, man, you're on vacation. It's done.
And you start to decompress immediately.
Exactly.
And you come back like, okay, I've got the summer. I'm going to work. I feel good.
Yep.
You should try it next year, Mr.
The other big thing I noticed, we talked about it on the last pod, was when the summer flip happens, and Casey had pontificated August 1st. I think you agreed with him, Robbie. So I was acutely aware of that this year to determine if it was August 1st. It's August 1st, man.
It's
officially August 1st that the brain switches over and you move back towards regular school mode.
So essentially August doesn't count really.
It's basically the school year.
Yeah. It's the end of June is glorious in July.
Yeah.
And your kids are good. I got to see them a lot this summer. That was fantastic.
Yep.
My son helped your youngest learn how to jump off a diving board, which was an amazing video.
A+ work from Johnny there.
Work by Johnny Dodd. Mr. Siddons, you got away. I saw some pics of you and Frida and your bride.
Yeah, we made it to the beach in June, at the end of June, which was awesome. And July went by quick, and then August was supposed to be filled with a trip to Boston, and then we all got COVID, and then it messed up. And being the first time I've built the schedule for our school, August was not great. I felt like I was doing scheduling up until like last week.
Yeah,
which no one told me about.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did a killer job.
Yeah, kids have classes.
Yeah,
half of them don't have classes, but other than that,
well,
the ones that do are very happy.
I told a couple of teachers, I said, you may be teaching all 150 kids in the gymnasium for social studies, but that's fine.
How long was the line outside the counseling office for first 2 days? Not bad.
No, there are no lines. No lines.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Everybody was scheduled.
Success.
Yeah.
Good job.
So I made it. It was the first time going into pre-service where I didn't have like the butterflies. It felt like mostly stress-free because we had everything kind of set and ready to go. And then it's kind of nice that first week of school when kids come in because less people are dropping by your office and stopping you from getting your stuff done.
Well, and I had a great summer. Sent my oldest off to college. There were lots of endings and beginnings, graduation from high school. And we got away, and it was nice. I felt last year was a pretty challenging school year, which we're going to talk about. I'm sure as the Ed's Not Dead season 6 progresses. Before we get into this article about teacher shortage, I just want to mention, very, very, very sadly that one of our dearest friends and colleagues, an amazing educator named Jeff Edgar, passed away in July, too young, under 60 years old, retired. We were all together at one point in our careers, right?
Several years
at the same school. And Jeff was one of a kind, an amazing educator, touched a lot of people's lives as we saw at his service. And we were just all pretty crushed by his passing. I spent 6 years as we were, thick as thieves, as me as a principal and him as an assistant principal. And I learned a tremendous amount from him. I drove him crazy. He drove me crazy. But I loved him to death. And so I know you guys were deeply saddened by the loss of Jeff.
It's been quite a bummer. Last year, my first year's AP, I talked to him a lot and texted him a lot. And I was like, and I called him once a week. And I think about it once a week so far this year. And since August, I wish I could call him because he would he would tell me crazy stories of his time as an AP and just the crazy things that he was required to do. And just kind of commiserate on the challenges of being a new administrator. And I miss being able to call him up,
Yep.
It's a bummer.
Yep.
Yeah. Always wanted to provide perspective, Jeff Edgar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
levity or, whatever was needed.
It was usually a one-up story where it was like, he had to teach like 16 subjects or something like that while he was also lifeguarding and, what I mean? Like it was always a little bit of a one-up, but you kind of expected it. And he probably was in a much more challenging situation. So it's something you learn from.
He was a worker, and I know, Mr. Graves, you'd agree that he had a wicked sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
there was nobody quicker with a quip than Jeff Edgar. And finally, I'll just say that he was in education for all the right reasons. He cared deeply about kids. He would literally do pretty much anything to help an early adolescent. He was an expert on middle schools. There was he was born to be a middle school educator.
Yep.
And that's a small group of people. It's not a lot of humans on the planet that are ready for that. And that was Jeff. So, we miss him. We know his family was just crushed by his passing. And we're going to dedicate this show to our friend and colleague, Jeff Edgar. When we come back, we are going to get into wanted teachers, no training necessary. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ed's Not Dead. We are brought to you by Ed's Not Dead Media, a full-service educational media company focusing on leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. All right, fellas, you ready to get into this piece in the Washington Post?
The teacher shortage.
The teacher shortage?
Teachers, no training necessary. I think this was from what, Mr. Siddons, the 13th? You sent it to us, 13th of this month.
Very recently.
Yep. So it's in the WAPO. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the teacher shortage with our guest coming up, Dr. Scott Joftus. But let's get into this. So here we go. I'm going to read you a few pieces of this piece. States desperate to fill teaching jobs have relaxed job requirements. Public officials are openly challenging the idea that a degree in education should be a prerequisite for getting into the classroom, and are aiming to undo long-standing licensure rules. Many states have loosened job criteria. So let's see what some of these states are doing. You ready, Mr. Siddons? You're going to love these. When I went through these, I was thinking,
I'm so excited to talk about Governor DeSantis's quote.
Casey's, you're going to hold on that first.
I am. I'm waiting. I know that gets stuck in your craw.
Does use the word bloviate.
So school officials say emergency certified teachers need far more support than other first-year educators. Okay, so educators are saying that non-trained people are obviously going to need more support than trained people. So Arizona is allowing those earning bachelor's degrees to teach with the guidance of a mentor for 2 years. The State Board of Education voted this year to permit substitute teachers who need only a high school diploma to serve as full-time classroom teachers. Oklahoma, which has long contended with acute teacher shortages, passed a law a little more than a decade ago permitting districts that exhausted all means of finding qualified educators to get an emergency certification. So because of the shortage, Education Secretary Miguel Cardona, he weighed in, fellas. He said the teachers feel under attack, micromanaged, and disrespected. They're not given the resources they need to help their students succeed, and they sometimes have to take on second jobs just to make ends meet. So I think all three of us have seen this shortage up close and personal to some extent or another. So I'm leading off asking you, will these measures in this piece, which some of them are extreme, you can basically have no college degree, a partial college, be coming from another profession altogether. So there's some pretty extreme approaches to teacher hiring. Do you think this is going to result in negative impacts on students, schools, and the profession overall?
Casey, I know you want to rant, so go ahead.
No, I'm not going to rant.
It up.
I everything about what these states are doing is exactly the opposite of what should be happening. Like they're loosening restrictions, they're getting rid of certifications, they're getting rid of all the things that, all the bars and the standards that need to be raised in order to increase the quality of folks who are going into the teaching profession.
But short term, if you're at DEFCON 11, what do you do as a school system?
I understand that, but I want to bookend that by saying that this is not a new problem for Oklahoma, who starts their teachers out at like $32,000 or $30,000 a year. This is not a new problem for Florida, which pays their teachers very poorly.
and trend in the states.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not a new thing. So I say that understanding that they're dealing with. I can't even imagine how big their class sizes are. I can't imagine the impact on kids when they don't have an expert teacher in the classroom. It's sad. It's sad. It's very sad.
So I'll be a little devil's advocate here.
DA.
Not every teacher that has a certification is an expert teacher. Certification is one thing, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have certification, but I'm not sure that equates 1-to-1 to becoming an expert teacher. And I would argue
that's not what I was saying, though. That's not what I was.
Okay. I mean, you said
positive.
Expert, you said expert teacher. So
yeah, but no. Hold on. No, okay. Don't skew my words.
Craig. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay. Don't skew his words.
Okay. I am not saying that a certification in a specific subject area means that you're a good teacher. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
there are certifications and licensures and regulations in place to hopefully actually support the process of getting someone who is probably more or more qualified than not. Meaning, I can't get a certification to teach social studies unless I've done a program at a certified post-secondary institution that teaches teachers how to teach social studies.
So one thing I will say, so Robbie Dodd.
Yes.
Have you ever hired a teacher on a provisional certification?
Absolutely.
Casey, have you ever hired a teacher on a provisional certification?
No, I don't know.
I have not only hired teachers on a provisional certification, I myself have been hired on a provisional certification as well. And I think one thing that
That's the problem, Casey.
There's the problem. No, I'm just kidding.
Nope. There we go.
No, but so after you get over Ron DeSantis being Ron DeSantis, the idea that teachers don't become great teachers, not from sitting in a lecture hall, but from doing the job. There is some merit to that argument.
Yes.
Doing the job makes you better at the job.
All right. Stop there. There. Okay. Because you both have been just determined to steal the quote from me, because I've
gone around and around it. I'm waiting.
Okay. So the great governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, quote, the teachers that become great teachers don't become great teachers because they're sitting in some university lecture hall listening to some professor bloviate.
Isn't that the villain in one of the James Bond movies?
Yeah. DeSantis said when he announced an initiative to allow community college graduates to teach under a mentor teacher for 2 years. Quote, what makes a teacher great is actually being there, doing it, watching experienced teachers and seeing what they do that works, working directly with students. So, this, I want to let you guys argue some more, but this did make me think, is there a link between the affordability and accessibility of higher education? Because he is, he's an anti-intellectual, although I do believe he went to Yale.
He went to Yale.
Okay, but he hates the Ivies because he went to Yale. Is there a link between the accessibility of higher ed and the attractiveness of the profession for young adults? So if I guess what I'm saying, if you're going to spend a fortune, your parents are going to spend a fortune to send you to college or to help send you to college. Are you really interested in teaching in Oklahoma?
Right.
Are you really, is the profession attractive enough? I just think we have a higher ed issue.
I don't disagree with that. I think we're also talking about two separate things, which is the college experience and everything about college and certification, which I think are two separate issues.
I agree. Teacher prep versus certification.
But I agree. Like the experience when we talk about what kids are doing or students are doing in colleges, if you're sitting in college classes and not working with kids and expert teachers throughout your time in school, you're missing that. So that's such an incredible opportunity. You're missing everything about the job, the whole job. You're missing that. Yes.
But then again, Crable, is education. I believe at my core in education as a social science.
Mm-hmm.
It deserves to be a degree program. There is a lot to learn about child and adolescent psychology and methods of teaching. And you can get smart from learning about education. And yes. I think that will help you be a better teacher. It in and of itself, will it make you a great teacher? No. You need the experience as well. That's why there's always been student teaching. Whether it's dumb or not is another discussion, but you get the theory and you get the practice.
But
that's the idea behind it.
Right. And you can have both if it's designed right. I did it where it was you take all these classes and then at the end, hopefully you still want to be a teacher, and then you do student teaching. And the amount of people that passed student teaching was probably 100%. But I think having the methods courses and all the other courses that you might have about teaching, being an effective teacher is so important, because you're in a classroom setting. You're not doing it when you're also working, hopefully. So you're able to focus on the craft, the research. I mean, it's not a secret what makes an effective teacher. There's loads and loads and loads of research of how to teach effectively, how to reach kids. And we need people to experience that in the classroom, while also at the same time, in some capacity, being around children, knowing how to interact with kids, and learning from an expert teacher.
Right. And I think we've identified two kind of broad areas here of barriers. So one is, most sort of people in the education world, including the Secretary of Education, would argue that people don't go into the profession because it doesn't pay well, because teachers don't have autonomy, because teachers aren't treated as professionals, stuff like that. And I think the other one, though, Robbie, to your point, is like, how do you become a teacher? Like, it requires several years of preparation. And there are some backdoors kind of to get in. You and I, Robbie, were both paraeducators, and that's both how we decided and found out that we actually did like working with kids. I really, to be honest, had no great interest, and never even crossed my mind to be like an education major prior to being like, I don't want to work in an office. What else can I do?
I refused, flat out refused to do it.
Right. Oh, did your dad want you to do it?
Yeah. He kept nagging me about it, and I kept saying no.
And so I think, for as loathsome as DeSantis is, this idea of allowing community college graduates to work under a mentor teacher for 2 years to get them, they have a college, maybe an associate's. But I think maybe it sounds, and I don't know enough about it, honestly, to really say too much about it, but it seems like a little bit of a mix between like a vocational program mixed with some of that theoretical, I guess, book learning, bloviation, if you will. And I think things like that are okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Throw everything out. Anybody can do it. Step in the classroom. Like, all right, that's ridiculous.
Right.
But, I think there is some middle ground, and does need to be some acknowledgement that maybe the teacher pay and the professionalism is not the only reason that people don't go into education.
Right.
I can't remember really specifically, because now my doctoral studies are increasingly seeming like a long time ago. But I know John Hanushek at Stanford did a fair amount of research on the highly qualified stipulation of No Child Left Behind. You all will remember that school systems were required to hire quote unquote highly qualified teachers. So there was out of NCLB, a lot of licensure kinds of things came about. My gut tells me, I remember the research said that it was found to be somewhat non-impactful,
not causal,
or even very strongly correlational with student achievement. That it was just kind of more institutionalized red tape. And so but I also worry about the slippery slope of deprofessionalizing the profession even further, because it's a profession, let's be honest, that has struggled with that. And the professions association with unions, which I support, but that's something that the American public doesn't necessarily consider unions as signifying professionalization.
Right.
So the reality that we're left with is it does appear that there is a significant shortage of teachers. I don't know if the profession is in crisis. I'm concerned about it. Because we all three think we got into it in different ways, but we all love the profession. And we love teaching, and it just, we
want more people to do it.
Correct. We want more people to do it.
Yeah, so, and I would just, as a final thought, I know that we're closing up, but
no, you got the last word.
The thing that I notice a lot in my, my tenure so far in education is I don't think I've ever heard another educator tell a student, you should be a teacher.
I just started doing that this year.
And
I just started asking kids about it. Yeah.
And I'm going to toot my own horn when I see kids, my own students, my current students that I have, like, I'm like, you'd make a great teacher. Like, have you ever thought about going into teaching? Like, planting that seed and just be like, I've heard people say, like, you shouldn't go into teaching, like, don't be a teacher, which is also discouraging. But we have to be more optimistic about the profession ourselves and have more trust in the fact that that it can get better, but we need to. It's a great career. It's a great profession. It's so hard. It's so complicated. It's so complex, but you're working with humans.
That is a profound final word. You are right. We as a profession, I have real questions about why don't we tell kids all the time, you should be teachers? I mean, I'm sure doctors tell people you should be a doctor.
All they hear is they want to be engineers.
Correct.
And of course we need engineers. Of course we need scientists.
We have lots of educators that are guilty. No offense. They're parents. They can do what they want to do, but they tell their own kids not to be teachers.
Correct.
So, all right. Well said, Casey. Thank you. All right. When we come back, fellas, we are incredibly excited to have Dr. Scott Joftus on the show. Don't go away. We will be right back. All right, fellas, we are incredibly excited to have Montgomery County Board of Education member, amongst other things, education consultant, professor, former teacher, public school parent, Dr. Scott Joftus on Ed's Not Dead. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. Yeah,
we're really excited to have you. So let's jump right in. You've been a Board of Education member for the better part of a year now. I have that right, correct?
Officially, I got sworn in like mid-December. Okay. So whatever that is, 8 or 9 months.
So you've experienced a ton, I'm sure, in less than a year. So if you could talk to us and our audience about in that time and just throughout your other experiences as an educational leader, what are the most pressing issues for boards of education right now, both locally and nationally?
Yeah. So, I mean, thank you for that. So I think that it's different locally than it is nationally, right? Because I think fortunately for Montgomery County, we're not yet facing the sort of politically divisive. How do you say that word?
Depends how fancy you are.
I think fancier is divisive.
Divisive. I'll go with fancy. Okay. So the politically divisive topics of things like CRT and book banning of books. We've had it a little bit, but fortunately, it's been pretty well contained. That to me is the issue nationally, is this political wedge that we're seeing being driven through the heart of the American public that is counterproductive, it's ugly, and thankfully we're not dealing with that on any comprehensive manner yet. I will say that. Locally, I think, people were really upset. Community was very upset by how MCPS we handled the pandemic, and especially around the communications of that. I've been also speaking to some former principals who unfortunately feel like they were thrown out of under the bus by the system during the pandemic, and to the point where they felt the need to leave the system. Unfortunately, they're great principals. So I think that's been the number one issue is how do we re-engage the community? How do we rebuild the trust? How do we communicate? Bethesda Chevy Chase High School just had a scary incident yesterday. And for the better part of today and yesterday, I've been hearing from parents like, we didn't know what was going on. Everyone was terrified. Half of us thought, our kids were in serious danger. Other half of us didn't even know anything was going on. So that's a really big issue that I think we all need to work on as far as just how do we communicate in a way that that is effective and sort of values the very diverse population that we serve. And then the other two big issues, and I'll say these more quickly. One is mental health of students and staff. It was bad going into the pandemic. And right now, I don't think it's an overstatement to say it's at crisis proportions. And then, of course, the learning loss that was experienced. We're seeing, test scores and achievement levels for all students across the county have just sort of fallen off a cliff. And it's that's troubling and something that we need to focus on.
Can I back up just a little bit too about like when you're talking about CRT and the culture wars that seemingly have come down to boards of ed across the nation? Like you've experienced the board of ed for almost a year. You've been a teacher. You've seen the on the ground impact. You're working in the consulting world, but like what typically boards of ed don't get paid attention to prior to 2016, 2015, right? But now it's like this cultural touch point. Why are boards of ed so important for voters to pay attention to just at large?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that question because I am campaigning and one of the to be reelected to the seat. And one of the challenges I face and we face as board members is just getting people to understand how important the board race is and to pay attention to it. Montgomery County has almost a $3 billion budget. It represents half of the county's budget, right? And if for no other reason, whether you have kids in the system or not, the quality of our schools and how we use those $3 billion is going to determine everything from your quality of life to your housing values to the extent of crime and other sort of negative consequences when we don't do a good job in our schools. So those are the reasons that I think we need to pay attention to the board. I can go into more of a detailed description of, I think there's a misunderstanding of, I like to say that people think we have both more power and less power than we do, right? Less power in the sense that we don't hire principals, we don't fire principals, we don't deal with matters of teaching and learning. We don't decide whether to close schools on a snow day or for COVID. More power because we're responsible for $3 billion. We hire and fire the superintendent. We set the vision for the district. And as I see in districts across the country that we work with during my day job, a board can really take a school district down a really bad path. And there's this need to sort of stay out of the way in some extent, and also to provide positive leadership that I think is really, really important.
So you, in terms of pressing issues, you mentioned, in Casey mentioned divisive issues, and so
we're going fancy.
We're doing it.
Divisive.
Yeah. We're drinking tea with pinkies out. So you had mentioned in your community in Montgomery County a recent scare with guns, and so it's a small question and a larger question. So one is around specifically the question of weapons and when and how does a school board decide to become involved in an issue like that is politically divisive, that does have very strong feelings on both sides, but is directly related and has effects on schools. Like, where is that balance between sitting back and letting society handle problems, and I guess like advocating for things in society that are directly and or negatively impacting schools?
Boy, that's a $1 million question. So I think I'll start by answering that. So there's this line that's often used in board trainings. I use it when I train other boards, which is, if you're trying to fix water fountains in schools, you're doing something wrong as a board member. If you're trying to make sure that there are systems in place to monitor and fix water fountains across the district, then you're doing something right. So I think that pertains to your question about guns as well. There was an issue yesterday in one of our high schools, Bethesda Chevy Chase, where there was a concern that at one point there was concern there was an active shooter. Then it was kind of more like, no, but there's a gun in the school, and there was just a lot of misinformation flowing around. To me, the board does not have any role in addressing that specific circumstance. But where I'm starting to get involved is, I heard from a lot of as I mentioned, I heard a lot from parents of BCC students saying, look, we just need to know, like, if we don't know anything yet, we need to know that, right? So the system went dark for too long of a period of time, and it increased the rumors, it increased the anxiety of students, staff, and parents. And we can't have that. Unfortunately, in this day and age, we need to have really thoughtful approach to those types of circumstances. And so there, I think it is appropriate, and this is where I'm trying to lean in, is what is our crisis communications plan for, God forbid, a gun in the school or other type of emergency? We need to do a better job at that. And I think that's an appropriate role for me and for the board to play.
So let's switch gears for just a second. Another topic that has dominated kind of discourse on public ed right now is we were mockingly calling it a so-called teacher shortage.
Just jokingly. I don't know about mocking.
Okay. Mockingly was too strong. All right. But when we say so-called, there is a little bit of a lack of clarity nationally about whether this teacher shortage exists. I tend to believe, just like public education is so fragmented in this country in so many ways, there may be a shortage in Oklahoma, but not in Fairfax County, Virginia. So you're a former teacher. Now you're a board member. You consult with systems across the country. What do you see as some of the causes of the teacher shortage? And what can school systems do? And what do you think the school system that you're currently a Board of Education member can do to help the profession? It is the most important role in any public school system.
Yeah, totally agree with that last statement. It is the most important role in any, I would say, in society, even beyond school systems. So unfortunately, it's a big, complicated answer, which is, I think, that in order to address what I do believe is a teacher shortage, and I do agree with you, Robbie, that it's worse in some places than others. But I do believe that it's real, and we can look at student teachers. The applications are way down, the enrollment is way down. And so this is a problem that's not going to be solved overnight. I think in order to solve that, we have to rethink teaching and learning, right? Like salaries need to get better, no question about it. And I think MCPS has done we have done a good job of staying kind of at the forefront of salaries for teachers and other staff. But we also live in an expensive community, and I think we need to keep pushing that. And the Maryland Blueprint is appropriately pushing us to do that, and I think we even need to stay ahead of that. But to me, we don't fix this problem until we fix what the teaching profession is. And I think the rote test-based process that is sort of the fallback in many classrooms and schools is uninspiring to students, and it's uninspiring to principals, and it's uninspiring to teachers. And until we make it a more inspiring and creative and unleash of the passion that people come to teaching with, it's going to be hard to turn this tide around.
Yeah, well, let me just say one thing. You made me think real quick that I think NCLB was 01, correct? So we're 20 years past that.
Yeah.
And I talked to the fellas here a lot about that time.
The Dodd retrospective.
Yeah, well, it just seems like Dr. Joftus just reminded me that I think we still feel the hangover, the effects from that law a long time later. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, we're still basically under the NCLB regime, right? And I mean, this might be too. I don't know. I think there were some things that came out of that were very positive. So I don't want to just bash NCLB, but I do think that it resulted in a narrowing of curriculum, a focus on test scores above anything else, and a reduction in sort of teacher and school autonomy.
Correct.
That makes the profession something that's attractive to young people considering what their careers are going to be.
You said something in your previous response that struck me about the teacher shortage. Specifically, I mean, like, we'll call a spade a spade. It's like we have 4 guys here, 4 white guys, and we're talking about the teacher shortage. And I as our school systems across the country continually become more diverse, and we continuously need more teachers of color in our school systems, we need teachers who look like the kids that are in front of them.
Yeah.
Something that struck me from your response is, like, how do we create a more an education experience for kids that inspires them to want to be in school? And frankly, I mean, like, a lot of our students of color, our Black kids and our Hispanic kids, they're not having positive experiences in schools. And most people, not really me included, but I think most teachers go into school and to be teachers because they had a good experience teaching. They loved being they loved playing school, or they loved the idea of being a teacher. So what boards of ed really are on the forefront of setting policy and reaching out to organizations to get more teachers of color. So what are your thoughts on that in terms of the board's role?
So the board's role in terms of bringing in a more diverse teaching workforce?
Yeah.
So, boy, I think there's a few things that the board can do. So one thing, and in MCPS, I'm really proud of, and this happened prior to me, so I had no role in it, but that is we're doing an anti-racism audit. And I think that's a bold move, right? Like first of all, calling it an anti-racism audit, I think takes courage, and being committed to it, and being committed to saying whatever the results and recommendations are, we're going to do everything we can to put those things in place. So I think that's one thing that the board can provide a huge amount of leadership on. And I'm really proud of the board the members that preceded me that made that happen. So I think that's one thing. I think then it goes back to what we were just talking about around creating a culture that's not quite so focused on test scores and a narrow curriculum based on reading and math scores, right? So I think we're starting to get better around things like career pathways and more engaging learning, hands-on learning, that I think it will make the teaching profession more attractive to everyone, including teachers of color. And then I know, just based on our consulting, that we don't do a good job of making teachers and administrators of color feel included in decision making and the sort of setting of processes and implementation of those processes, and often are put in positions where we're asking administrators of color to pay a lot of attention to discipline, for example, and not necessarily be instructional leaders. We're asking the same thing from our teachers of color. And so I think we need to sort of check some of those tendencies that we have for our professionals who are coming to us from either Black and Brown communities.
So I got one more question before we get you out of here with an awkward quiz. So, you've talked about and mentioned No Child Left Behind, and the effects of it, and kind of the testing regime, and how that's, now 20, 21 years on, we're still feeling the effects of it. So, and then we recently had the NAEP, the National Something for Academic Progress. I had it before when I was playing this question in my head.
I think I'm going to go with assessment. Is it assessment, Mr. Gray?
Oh, just lost that one. I apologize.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay, we'll edit that out. No, National Assessment for Educational Progress, where kids it's the biggest drops and the least amount of gains in 20 years. And so it starts the hand-wringing over learning loss. So it's a paradox, because we wring our hands over learning loss that we only know from these standardized tests. So we do more standardized tests to determine if there's more learning loss. So my question is, how do we break out of that cycle? We seem to be almost incapable of judging schools in any other way aside from large standardized tests. And I'm not one that's like, throw all the tests out, let's not do any tests.
Right.
But how do we get back to a place of balance where we have these tests and they have a place and they have a say, but it's not the only thing that the general public digests in how they judge schools, where we can say schools are more than just one test once a year?
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think we need tests, right? None of us want our kids to graduate not being able to read texts that are complicated and that enable us to think about big thoughts and prepare us for the workforce and other things. So I have no problem with tests, but I agree with you. I mean, I think the way you do that is you have to build into these accountability systems other types of measures, right? So in my day job in consulting with school systems, we do a lot of strategic planning. And what I've seen in the last year or so is not just a willingness, but a demand from school systems to define a portrait of a graduate, right? And that is often thought of as well beyond the skills that can be measured in a written or computerized test. Things like relationships and problem solving and creativity and things that are very difficult to measure. But I think we need to keep pursuing measures for those types of activities characteristics, because like it or not, I feel like accountability systems are here to stay, and I think they need to be here to stay. But we need to think about them in more comprehensive ways, realizing that it's not just reading and math skills as measured by a standardized test that's going to determine the success of our kids. But we need to be thinking about things like cross-cultural literacy and language skills and problem solving and working in teams and everything that our business partners are telling us that are important and that our college partners are telling us that are important. So I think it's finding these measures for things that right now seem hard or impossible to measure. But I think we're getting better at doing that and then incorporating those into our accountability systems.
And I will. I'm glad you asked that question, Grace, because we don't have to talk about it now, but I would add one other thing to measure, which shouldn't be new, but it is, which is what you led off with, Scott, which is the well-being of our kids.
Yeah.
I think educators are really interested now, and how are we sure that the whole student is okay in school?
Yeah.
Because that has been a real concern, I think, for all of us. All right. On that note, this is the time in the show where I pass the baton to CH Siddons and the quiz.
Yeah.
All right.
You ready?
What you got?
Have you been studying? I don't know.
I'm fully prepared for this.
All right, great. So, Scott, it's been great having you on the pod.
Thank you.
And we know that you have a lot of expertise around education and educational leadership. But I'm curious what you know about other famous Scotts in our world.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I was wondering if it was going to be Scots or other famous Joftuses.
There's not many famous Jofti out there.
So for the record, as far as I know, and I've Googled from here and as far as we know, we are the only Joftus in the United States at least.
Wow.
Really?
Yep.
See, look at
One of one. There you
go.
Well, my parents also, but
right.
Okay.
Yep.
But as a unit, there's one Joftus unit.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
So if you answer 2 out of 3, you win, and we'll send you an Ed's Not Dead sticker. Crable has some stickers, so
Okay.
Have we still got more stickers?
Yeah, a million. Yeah, we're good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right, number 1, F. Scott Fitzgerald, famous author of books as The Great Gatsby and Tender as the Night. What did the F stand for? Was it, and you have multiple choice on all these.
Oh, okay, all right.
So speaking of assessment, A, Francis, B, Forsyth, or C, Frederick?
So Francis is before you gave me the multiple choice, Francis is the word name that popped into my head, but so I'm going to go with that one.
That's correct.
Hey,
all right.
All right. 1 for 1. Number 2, the famous author Sir Walter Scott lived appropriately enough in Scotland, where he produced many famous novels and poems. Which of these is not written by him?
Oh, gosh.
This is hard.
This one's a hard one. A, Guy Mannering, B, Tom Jones, or C, Ivanhoe?
I'm going to go Ivanhoe. I don't think I think that's someone else.
It's actually Tom Jones. Was not written by him.
You just asked that question because you wanted to say Ivanhoe.
I did. That's really what I
Well,
wanted
that
to say.
was obscure.
It was.
So who wrote Tom Jones?
I have no idea.
No follow-up questions allowed.
I'm not sure that's a good.
Robbie might know.
Now, I was an English major, but Tom Jones sounds like an American novel to me, but I could be wrong.
It also sounds like an American singer.
It does.
It does.
Yeah, that's
very
not
confusing.
unusual.
Yeah, late
right.
60s, early 70s American singer.
Las
Tom
Vegas.
Jones.
All right. So I got one more, and I have a bonus just in case. Number 3. Scott Bakula starred in a series in which the hero, Sam Beckett, found himself stranded, traveling backwards and forwards in time. What was the name of this series? Was it A, Quantum Leap, B, The Tomorrow People, or C, Sliders?
Peter, can you give me a
Lifeline?
I don't know what a good one is. It's an obscure word.
They're remaking it recently.
I have no idea.
Do you want to give him the choice? Give him the choices one more time. So
all right.
Maybe something will.
And give me a wink at the right.
Pick the weirdest one.
All right. A, Quantum Leap, B, The Tomorrow People, or C, Sliders?
I'm going to go A.
A, Quantum Leap is
Well done.
Correct. Well done.
Look at that.
I actually remember watching this as a very young kid, and I'm being fascinated by it. I loved it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
So Dr. Joftus was 2 out of 3. Is that
2 out of 3? So
all right.
You met standard.
Yeah.
I'm expecting that standard. I'm expecting this. I'm expecting the sticker too.
That's
and
right.
Tom Jones was written by Henry Fielding.
Oh,
Whoever that is.
obviously.
But is Henry Fielding American or British?
Oh, so many questions.
Henry Fielding sounds British.
You did the Fielding part.
Henry Fielding.
Okay.
We'll have to let somebody else look it up.
Henry Fieldingshire.
Before we relieve Dr. Joftus of his misery, you have an important election coming up in a couple months. And we do have a few people that listen to the show. Any last thoughts about your candidacy for the Board of Education for Montgomery County?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So, you know, my pitch, if you will, is that we have some really great members of the board and some really great candidates for the board. What I think I bring that is unique is that I have this system experience for the last 18 years. I've run a small business that advises school boards and superintendents across the country around issues related to equity, strategic planning, school and system improvement. And we just don't have that perspective. And it's unique on school boards. And what that affords me is the perspective around really staying focused on things that matter, creating a system of continuous improvement around a few key high leverage initiatives that will improve outcomes for all students, and that won't result in us chasing, we call them on the board now, we're using the terms fat rabbits and skinny rabbits. Fat rabbits you want to chase, skinny rabbits not so much, right? So keeping that focus on fat rabbits that are meaty, that are meaningful, that are impactful for our kids and families. My priorities are consistent with what the board wants to do. They're consistent with what the superintendent wants to do. And frankly, they're consistent with what a lot of the candidates for the Board of Education are. The difference is, I think, that I bring the experience and perspective that will help us actually implement those priorities and achieve the outcomes that we're all hoping for.
Awesome. I know you're on social media a lot.
I sure am.
What any platforms you want to hit?
I think if you just, any one that you're on, if you just look up Scott Joftus, you'll find me. My website is Joftus, the number 4 BOE.com. Okay. I think, yeah, you'll find me. I'm out there, and I'm also always willing to come out and chat. And I'm always willing a couple of things that I've said to folks is, one is, I bring a lot of education perspective and expertise and background. What I don't have, and what I'm still in the process of learning, is the nuances of all of our different communities across this big, fantastic county of ours. And so always willing and wanting to learn about the sort of particular issues that are facing some of our communities. So I'm always happy to come out for coffee and meet with parents and educators to learn what's happening in your schools.
All right. Well, on behalf of my buddies, Peter and Casey, Dr. Joftus, it's been great to have you on the show, and we'll get you back on Ed's Not Dead again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Welcome back to Ed's Not Dead, fellas. That was a terrific interview. Thanks again to Dr. Scott Joftus. It was great to have him on the show. Best of luck to Dr. Joftus in his candidacy for the Montgomery County Board of Education in November, right? That'll be here before we know it. As always, Ed's Not Dead is brought to you by Ed's Not Dead Media, a full-service educational media company focusing on leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. Check out all things Ed's Not Dead on Twitter at Ed's Not Dead PC. All right, we have a new segment. We are wrapping up the show. Mr. Siddons has already gotten a little bit spicy with me and Mr. Craze. We provided
fine. We just won't do it.
Minimal segment feedback, but we avoided a fight. But we're excited about it, Casey.
No, it was good. It was valuable. I might fight against it, but I take it. It's fine.
All right, share with the listeners what the news.
All right,
is.
It's ripping off of another famous, but not as famous as our podcast, but it's basically it's called the Take Appreciator. And so what I'm going to do as I compile all our education news pieces, I'm going to share 3 hot education takes from some questionable education news sources, and you're going to rank them. We're going to bring back Dear Betsy. You're going to rank them from 1 to 4 DeVosses. We're bringing back Dear Betsy.
Nice. All right.
So a 4 DeVos is just a steaming pile of garbage.
Steaming pile of garbage.
Okay.
Rating of 1 means just a lazy take. It's not even worthy of consideration. And a rating of 4 DeVosses means it's a full DeVos, meaning it's a full education secretary.
Do you think she's still out there doing like education stuff?
Oh yeah, she's pushing for boards of ed to be super right wing and funding people and going on her yachts and stuff like that.
She did show a
concern for bears.
Smallest fiber ever of courage at the very end, didn't she? I mean, didn't she kind of go out? Didn't she go out saying, I can't. The insurrection was a little bit.
I think the insurrection, really just proved it for her. It was just the straw,
You gotta have a line.
You have to have a line. I mean, she certainly showed courage.
Although there was a guy in a bear suit in the arena.
There was.
Or was that a buffalo? He was
a yak, I think. I don't know. Who knows?
All right, let's get going here. Give us some headlines.
This one's pulled from Twitter, and it includes a report from the Heritage Foundation from a right wing think tank, if you will. So I'm going to read the headline. I'll read some of the byline. And you get to rate. We'll start with Crable for this one. The Heritage Foundation, quote, Education Freedom Report Card is a highly instructive glimpse into the upside down world that is today's conservative education policy vision. Accountability is now a net drag and speech bans equal freedom. And here's some of the byline for you. The methodology defines all variables, explains why we chose them, and describes how we calculated and coded them. Mind you, there's a map of educational freedom included.
Ooh, nice.
Of the United States.
Like maps.
Oh, and who doesn't? The variables are organized into 4 main categories and influence the degree of education liberty in each state. 1, education choice. 2, regulation. 3, transparency. And 4, spending. So they have all these main categories of education liberty, and even published a very colorful map, color-coded map of the United States.
Well, I might have gone with 3 DeVosses, but the fact that they put a map on there, I gotta take a DeVos away.
Well said.
While I may disagree with a lot of what they say, I don't think it's so outlandish to measure. So I'll go with a ranking of 2 DeVosses on that.
Man.
And honestly, the factors, I don't know, Mr. Krabs, the factors, I mean, there were no degree to which CRT is taught or prayer in school.
Yeah,
that's true.
Nothing about bear dangers in the midst of schools.
They were fairly innocuous factors.
Yeah. So what are you giving it?
I'm with you. I'll go with 3 DeVosses.
No, I went with 2.
Two.
Yeah.
I'll go with 2 with you.
Okay.
All right. 2. Okay. We still got 2 more, so you have full potential to have a full DeVos.
Well, it just depends on the quality of the headlines you're sharing.
That's true. All right, next one. 4 more reasons to be mad about Biden's student loan debt amnesty.
Oh, only 4? All right.
That's right. Byline, every passing day, the scope of the Biden administration's regressive, expensive, unfair, and potentially illegal amnesty for student loan debt becomes clearer. Student loan forgiveness forces working Americans to pay off the woke managerial class, particularly Washington elites. America's children will be picking up the tab for this fiscal negligence for a generation.
Definitely bonus points for the woke manager. Got it. Like that's pretty quality.
That's pretty good.
There's something else at the beginning that I found pretty enjoyable. So yeah, I'll go because there's so much editorializing in there. I'll go ahead and do 3 DeVosses.
Oh,
that one.
All right.
I'm gonna throw you a curve.
You're not into it.
I'm down at the very bottom of the DeVos scale on this. I'm going with a very small portion of DeVos.
Why is that?
I've got my own questions about that move, both politically and practically. I am a member of the woke Beltway elite, but I'm far past paying off student loans. But I wonder if it was, let's be honest, not all legislation that helps people works, or is great. And I have some questions about this one.
All right.
So, I think of all the things he's done, this is the one that I think you could legitimately shoot full of some holes that are bipartisan holes.
But we're evaluating the headline, Robbie. Just the headline.
I did ask him why, so I apologize. That was my fault. That was my fault.
So
my fault.
I
did. We can bring that up on a topic on a future show.
I didn't think it was that steaming pile of garbage.
Yeah.
The student loan debt amnesty is my favorite. Anyway, all right, 3 out of 3 here. Number 3, a new ranking for education freedom. This is similar to the other one, but it's got some good word choice here. Right, Florida and Arizona lead the way in liberating families from woke bureaucracies. Historic declines in math and reading scores during the lockdown era, plus an embrace of anti-American propaganda by the educational establishment, have left many U.S. parents desperate for new school options. They want public funding to go to the schools they choose for their children, rather than being automatically routed to local government monopolies.
Ooh, indoctrination.
You go first on this
they
one.
Didn't use.
Yeah.
Socialists or communists. I mean, if they had gone socialist schools, indoctrinating students, some of those words I would give it a
missed
4.
opportunity.
Marxist academies.
Yeah, I would have definitely gone with a 4. But I think it was 3 DeVos worthy.
I'm gonna go with you, but it really, I'll do 3 too. It really satisfyingly hits on all the buzzwords.
It does. It really does. I can't believe it.
Yeah. But I do think they could have done a little better. They could have, as you said, or anything about prayer in there too, and freedom a couple more times.
Yeah. They didn't get any
say freedom.
They didn't get
freedom
any
squared
sexual deviance in there. And they should have. It's Florida, right?
That's true.
They should have had something about that.
Yeah,
man. All right. So I need to up my game for next time, because
these are tame, Casey. Come on,
full 4 DeVos playbook here.
You need to find some more. You need to go to the dark web.
I need to start surfing on.
Buy a separate computer just for the dark web.
I need to go on Newsmax or something like that next time. Oh, boy.
Are you into Reddit at all?
I dabble, but
okay, that could be
it's a wormhole.
I dabble.
It's a wormhole.
What does that mean?
There's not enough time left in the show to figure out what that means. I'm just saying that could be a good potential
Casey,
source.
you have dabbling issues. What does dabbling mean?
Just like 10 or 12 hours a week. That's it. Cap it at 13. No more.
So funny.
All right. Sorry if I missed it at the beginning, Mr. Sids. What's that segment called again?
The Take Appreciator.
Take Appreciator.
Until we get yelled at by the less popular podcasts.
Because we copied their content. Okay.
I just took 2 words that sometimes people use.
We ran out of time for stock up, stock down. We're going to do that next time. And I do want to remind our listeners, as we are back for season 6, because we're the best ed podcast around, please send us some show feedback.
Tell your friends.
So I don't embarrass Casey and Peter at the beginning of every episode.
And send us emails and DMs. We love answering questions.
DMs are open.
Yeah.
Slide into the DMs.
Slide into the DMs.
I don't really know what that means.
Facebook.
Don't know.
Yep. So we want your feedback, and we will read it on the air.
Mm-hmm.
All right, fellas. Thanks to Dr. Scott Joftus for joining END. We really appreciate having him on the show, and we wish him best of luck in his election coming up. The show is brought to you by Ed's Not Dead Media, full-service educational media company focusing on leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. I just have to ask Crable one quick question, Mr. Sids.
Yes.
I'll ask you both. NFC and AFC champions.
Ooh, after week 1, I'll go AFC. I'll go with the recency effect. I'll go with the Bills.
Okay.
The
NFC,
Buffaloes.
Quick. NFC.
NFC.
No front runner.
No front runner at all. Gee, they're all so terrible. I'll go with the Bucks.
Okay. Mr. Sids.
All right. AFC. Are we saying AFC like winning the whole thing? Or
yes, they're going to win the match.
Who will be the AFC team in the Super Bowl?
Okay, absolutely Buffalo Bills.
Okay, and the NFC team.
Oh, let's see. I have to see a list of NFC teams.
Who plays football?
The Washington Commanders.
Oh, nice, Mr.
Homer pick. I love it.
Just saying.
Nice.
I have to get on the bandwagon of being an optimistic Washington Commanders fan.
Love it.
It only took you 15
You know
years.
what? I think it's their year. I think it's the Commanders' year this year.
Okay. The Manders.
It's the restructuring kind of year last year. It felt like last year was restructuring.
Yeah.
Okay. They got a new quarterback. Okay, sorry.
New accountability measures.
Yes.
All right. As always.
Yeah. Hold on. Go give yours and then.
I got to get mine. I'm going to go. The Chiefs are going to learn how to run the ball. They are going to be the AFC representative, and I think I am going to go, like you said, Peter, the Bucks.
Okay. There we go. Agreement.
Yeah.
Tom Brady.
All right, fellas, I can't believe we are so grateful that we are back for season 6. We are still together. It's going to be a great season. We've got some special plans, right? That we're going to unveil in the coming weeks, shows, some segments and series that we're going to do. So you're going to have to wait on that. So don't miss out. Continue to tune in. Spread the word about Ed's Not Dead. Thanks as always for Peter and Casey. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.